Right, is it visible to everyone? My screen is visible to everyone. Is it visible? Okay, okay, thank you. So in the last class, we have discussed what exactly the process and what way it will be executed right from the beginning to the ending, whatever the operations that we can perform on it. These things we have discussed in the last class. Now, let us see the operations and process. Okay. In that, the very first one is process creation. How do we create the process? Uh, what are the steps that are involved in it? We'll see in this session. So here, a process may create any number of sub-process depends upon its requirement. Okay. So the process creation will be done with the help of two system calls called fork or span. These are the two different system calls used for process creation, right? So either by using fork or by using span, we can create the process, either the parent or the child process. Okay. So the process which does the creating is termed as the parent of the process, and the newly created one is called as child process. So initially the parent process will be created. Depends upon its requirement, it can create any number of child processes. Okay. So the newly created processes are called as the child, and the process which creates the processes is called as parent. Right. So another important point is each process will be assigned with a unique number called process ID for both parent and as well as child. Okay. For example, in your C program, probably if you have two different user-defined functions other than your main function. Okay. So let us assume that your main function is the parent. Okay. So in your main function, you may invoke different function calls, right? So first function call will be treated as the first child process. Okay. Whenever you call the another function, that will become a second child process. Like that, any number of child process may be created by the parent. Okay. So here, the important point which you are supposed to remember is each process, both parent and child, will be assigned with a unique number called process identification number or process identifier, or simply PID. Right? In the Unix system, the process scheduler is termed as scheduler. Simply, we'll call it as sched. And initially, it is launched with, or initially it was assigned with 0. Whenever if your system has started, in that case, the scheduler will be initially assigned as a process, and with the identifier assigned for the scheduler is 0. After that, the init day, after once the system has started, okay, it launches the init process. Init process simply it is the name for initialization of the application. Init. Okay. So for the init process, the process ID for it as for init is assigned with a 1. Okay. Initially it was started with the 0. Once the initialization process has done, okay, a new process is created with the identification number 1. So always the init acts as a parent ID for all subsequent process IDs. So in our system, init is the parent process. Okay. Uh, and then it launches all other systems, user logins, and all whatever the remaining things that are needed to open your system. So all the processes will be created by init. Okay, here you can observe login is a process, kthread is a process, SSHD, batch, like that it creates a number of sub-processes. And another important point you are supposed to observe is each and every one is assigned with a process, a different process ID, unique process ID, right? So, like this, whatever the number of processes are necessary for operating your system will be created. Right? So here, depending on the system implementation, a child process may receive some amount of shared resources with its parent, right? So probably the memory which is allocated for this parent process may be shared by this child process, okay? Or some other resources which are allocated for this parent may be used by the child process. It depends upon the implementation of the system. Okay, so what I mean to say is, the child process may or may not be limited to the subset of the resources originally allocated to the parent. That means either it may use the resources which are allocated for the parent, or it may use some other resources which are required for this particular one. This means the child process. Okay. And here there are two important points which are supposed to be understood regarding the creation of the child process by the parent. Wait for the child process to terminate before processing. So before going to discuss about these two options, let me explain you the program. How do we create the child process? Okay. Right. So this is the code for creation of the child process. So here int PID is used for representing the process ID. So as I told you, the process will be created with the system call called fork or span. So here I use fork. Later we will discuss about span also. Okay. Fork system call will create a child process. Probably it returns with the value, integer value. Okay. So that means after executing this, it assigns some integer value to this PID. Okay. If PID is a negative value, suppose if it returns the negative value, then we may treat that the process creation has failed, right? So it was unable to create the process. When if the PID is less than 0, or simply you can call it as a negative value. In that case, it exits with the -1. Suppose if it is 0, that means a child process, it creates the child process and then it will be executed. Otherwise, if it is greater than 0, the control will be given to the parent. So what parent has to do is it has to wait until the completion of the child process. Once it was completed, then it continues its execution, right? So you can imagine in the main function itself, you have written, you want to call two different user-defined functions. Okay, so once you made a call to the first user-defined function, what happens internally? Control will be moved to the definition of the first function. Okay, so until it returns back to the next statement of the main function, it is in waiting state, right? So here the main function is the parent process, whereas the user-defined functions which you made a call acts as a child process, right? So until the completion of the child process execution, parent process has to wait. Or parallelly, it can do its own process. So these are the two different options that exist. Okay. So here we'll consider the first option, wait null. So what happens in that case is it waits until the completion of the child process. Right? Let me execute this program. Yeah. So it was executed. Program finished with exit code 0. So here, what is the message that you obtained? What is the output that you obtained? Child completed. When it will be? So if this part is executed, you may got the output like this. That means what happens in that case? So here the fork has created, or otherwise if you want to print that PID, you can print here. So here, what is the value of PID? 11,700. So it is greater than 0. So that's why the control will be given to the parent. So what parent has to do is he just wait until the completion of the child for the termination process. Right? Hope you are all clear with this. Fork function call is used, system call is used for creation of process. So this fork function system call returns the integer value. So that will be treated as process ID. If it is less than 0, it indicates that the process creation was unsuccessful. If it is equal to 0, then the control will be given to the child process for the direct execution. Whereas if it is greater than 0, positive value, then control will be given to the parent. So in that case, again, what kind of operations that exist, we will see later, right? That means either waiting for the completion of the child process, or the parent will continue its process parallelly along with the child process execution or not. So these are the two different possibilities. Okay, so we'll see in detail what happens, what kind of execution that exists after creation of the process. Okay, now here there are two options for the parent process after creating the child. So first one is wait for the child process to terminate before proceeding. Okay, so the parent makes a wait system call for either a specific child or for any child. As we have seen in the program, this wait method, this wait system call is used for just it is assigned to the either a specific child. You can specify the PID. Here we have just simply wrote the statement right like wait null. There, if you specify a particular process ID, what happens in that case? We'll wait until the completion of that particular process ID, which we have specified as an argument in the wait system call. Okay. So suppose if you want to apply it for all, then you can simply say null. Now means whatever the number of child processes that were created by this parent. So the parent has to wait until the completion of all the child processes. Right? This is one option. Another option is run concurrently with the child. That means continues to process without waiting. Okay, child will continue with its own execution, whereas parent will continue its own execution. That kind of possibilities also be there. So these are the two different possible options that are exist after creating the child process. Right. Then coming to the address space of the child. So how it is the memory, because for each and every process, the operating system will maintain a separate data structure called PCB, process control block, where it maintains the information like process number, the registers which it is used, the memory limit, the files, right, etc., etc. Like that, it maintains certain information regarding each and every process. So here, how it uses the memory, as I told you at the very beginning, The child process may use the resources of the parent, or it may create its own memory address space in order to complete its task. Okay, so here let us see what are the possibilities that exist. The child may be an exact duplicate of the parent. It's very important all of you understand this point. The child may be an exact duplicate of the parent, sharing the same program and the segment in memory. Okay, so whatever the memory address space that was allocated for the parent and whatever the registers, CPU registers that are used, simply you can imagine the PCB of parent is simply copied into the PCB of child, just duplicating. That means both of them are using the same memory space, same CPU registers, same the files, okay, and same memory limit, but both of them are assigned with the two different process identifiers. So the process numbers are different, remaining all are same. So such kind of functioning is happening when you are using, such kind of functioning is happened when you are using fork system call. So in our example, we just use the fork system call. What happens in that case? Whatever the child process it was created, it uses the parent address space. Simply, the PCB of parent is copied as PCB of child, except the process ID. Right? And the second option is the child process may have a new program loaded into its address space with all new code and data segments. This kind of behavior is exist when you are using span system call. Okay, so usually in the Linux environment or the Unix environment, the fork system call behavior is exist. When coming to the Windows, the span kind of process is exist. So in the span, what happens? Entirely new address space and data segments and new CPU registers and each and everything is new. Nothing will be copied from the parent, right? So such kind of behavior is exist in the span system call. Okay. Now you can see all these things in the diagram itself, upcoming diagram. So in both here, the important point which you remember is the fork system call will returns the process ID of the child process, right? So if you type the command get PID or PPID system call in the command prompt in order to get the whatever the ID that it was assigned to you. Okay. So here in our program, just I will try to print the parent ID, printf parent PID, so that we'll get 11,700 as the process ID. If you got same kind of output in the command prompt itself, you can type the command get PID to display the process ID. Whereas if you want to display the parent process ID, you can go with the get PPID, right? So this is the program which we have executed right now, and now this is the diagram. What up? So if the statement fork system call will return an integer value, which returns the process ID of newly created child process. Okay. So if it is less than 0, that is unsuccessful creation. So that's why it was not mentioned here itself. If it is 0, it executes the child process. After the completion of it, it exists. If it is greater than 0, the parent may wait until the completion of all this process. After that, it resumes its execution. Okay, so this is happening when you are using the fork system call. Right? So that is about process creation. By using fork or span system calls, you can create the process. What is the parent process, root process for all the processes? Init. Init will act as a parent for all the processes which are created in our system during the execution. Hope you're all clear with this, right? Now, let us look at about the process termination. How it could be terminated is process may request their own termination by making exit system call. Okay. Uh, Usually it returns an integer value, right? So this integer is passed along to the parent if it is doing a wait and is typically zero on successful completion and some non-zero code in the event of problems, right? So if it was successfully completed its execution, then probably it returns the zero as the return value. So if it returns a negative value, what it indicates? The process has terminated abnormally, right? Due to some technical problems, or maybe it may be terminated. So in such cases, it returns the non-zero code. Right? Here you can observe the uh, exit system calls. For the child code in exit code, exit of exit code. So it returns the exit code at the same effect when executed from main. Right? Here, whatever the exit code of this particular child will be returned. Right? So like that, you can terminate your process either by parent or the child process, whatever it may be. If it is the parent, if it wants to terminate, it needs to check whether the child has terminated or not. Right? Suppose if without terminating the child, if parent has terminated, for example, you can observe the diagram itself. So here the init is the parent, whereas all others are child process. So here init wants to terminate itself. So if it is if you did not verify whether all these child processes are terminated or not, without inquiring about all these child process, yes, somebody has raised a hand. So now you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question. Somebody raised a hand. So anyone is having any question? Any query? Yes. Okay, okay, okay. Right. So without inquiring this child process, suppose the parent is trying to terminate itself, what happens in that case? Suppose all of a sudden it was deleted from this tree. You can imagine. All of a sudden, parent, that means the root node has terminated from this tree. What about these subtrees? So that is the reason before terminating the parent process, you need to inquire about the child process whether they are terminated properly or not. Okay. If it is the child process, there is no more subchilds are exist, then probably it is its own decision either it want to continue or it may be terminated. Right? So the process may also be terminated by the system for the variety of reasons. Okay, up to now, depends upon the system, process requirement. It can have the facility to terminate with its own, but sometimes it is also possible the system can suspend some of the processes for the variety of reasons, right? Sometimes all of a sudden our system got shut down. We don't know what happened internally, right? Even we did not press this shutdown button, but automatically it was stopped. Okay, so like that, uh, there are variety of reasons the process may be terminated by the system. So let us have a look at on it. Right? Okay. So the first point is the inability of the system to deliver the necessary system resources. The inability of the system to deliver necessary system resources. Right? So suppose if it is not able to acquire a particular resource. For example, let us imagine my process wants to access the keyboard, right? At that moment, the keyboard is not exist, or it may be struck, or it may be utilized by some other processes. What happens in that case? How long it could be in the waiting state? So that is the reason it may be terminated, right? So you have practiced the kill command in the laboratory session, which is used for killing the processes, right? So if you type the kill command, what happens? Internally, whatever the processes that were running at that moment will be automatically deleted, right? Or some unhandled process interrupted. Some of the process which the system is unable to handle it. Because of that reason also, it was terminated, right? And a parent may kill its children if the task assigned to them is no longer needed. Your father is assigned a task to you. After that, after some time, he may realize that right now it is not necessary. So what he did, simply he cancelled whatever the task that it was assigned to you. Similarly, the parent process may kill its children process if the task is no longer required. If the parent exists, the system may or may not allow the child to continue without parent. As I told you, majority of the cases it won't allow you. That some of the independent cases, sometimes rarely it allow you to continue its execution by the child process without parent. But majority of the cases without parent, no child is exist. Right? So when a process terminates, all of its system resources are freed up. So what happens after terminating the process is whatever the resources that were allocated to the particular process will get freed up. Right? And all the open files are flushed and closed. So the process termination status and execution times are written to the parent if the parent is waiting for the child to terminate, or eventually return to init if the process becomes an orphan process. And another important definition here itself is sometimes you may get it as a 2 marks question, the definition of zombies. This is very important. It's a 2 marks question. Orphan process or zombies. Process which are trying to terminate but which cannot because their parent is not waiting for them are termed as zombies. All of you note down it. Process which are trying to terminate but they can't do it because the parent is not waiting for them. Such kind of processes are called as zombies. So these are eventually inherited by unit as an orphans and killed off. Okay, so so that is about process termination. Either what we understood from all this is either the process may terminate by its own, or the system may terminate it because of variety of reasons. So if the process wants to terminate with its own by executing the system call exit, it returns an the exit system call usually returns an integer value. Okay, if it is 0, it indicates that the execution is successful. If it is not, if it is not, uh, just a minute. If it is 0, then the termination process was implemented successfully. If it is non-zero code, there might be a problem. It was not terminated properly. Okay, right? And this is usual way. Apart from this, sometimes the system may also be terminated on processes with a variety of reasons. One is if it is unable to deliver the required resources for the continuation of the process. That is one point. Another point is if you execute the kill command or some unhandled process are okay. So in both the cases, the system itself it terminates the process. The parent may cancel the or it terminates the child process. Whatever the task that it was assigned to it is no longer required. Okay, so like that, with the different reasons, the process are terminated by the system, right? A process which is trying to terminate, but it cannot, because the parent is not waiting for them as zombie process, or simply called as zombies, right? So that is about process creation and process termination. Now have a look at inter-process communication. This is very, very important concept, inter-process communication. Here, the processes are two types. One is independent process and another one is cooperating process. So independent process means the independent process operating concurrently on a system are those that can neither affect other processes or be affected by other processes. They don't want to create any disturbance to the other process, but some other process may affect the execution of this process while they are executing concurrently. So such kind of processes are called as the independent processes. They are executed with its own, right? They don't want to interrupt or they don't want to affect any of the other process, but some other process may be affected this particular process, maybe, not all the cases. Such kind of process are called as the independent process. Another one is cooperating process. The cooperating process are those that can affect or be affected by others. That means in the previous case, what happens is I have a task. I just go with my own task. I never consider any other person, whether what they are doing, what way I am supposed to disturb them. I don't think in that direction. Directly, whatever the task that it was assigned, I just try to finish it. So during this process, somebody may affect my operation, or somebody may disturb my working environment. Right? But intentionally, I don't want to disturb any other. So such kind of process are called as the independent process, whereas the cooperating process are, they can affect or be affected by other process. So always they will try to interrupt others. Here, interruption is, don't think in a negative edge. Interruption is, I want to share something which is available with you. That is why here, what is the meaning of interruption, right? So cooperating processes always, they can affect the other process, or some other process may affects the cooperating process. There are several reasons why cooperating processes are allowed. First is information sharing. There may be several processes which need access to the same file. For example, pipelines. Okay, the Unix itself. Okay, we'll see. So majority of the people are trying to use this same file. In that case, what happens? We need to share this same file to the all other processes, right? And computation speed up. Often a solution to a problem can be solved faster if the problem can be broken down into subtasks to be solved simultaneously. For example, if I want to organize a function, I want to organize a seminar. Okay, in that case, what happens? I just divide the whole task into different parts. Registration task, some next, like that. I'll split it into parts, and those parts will be assigned to the somebody. So that what happens? With all together, we are able to complete the task with less amount of time in an effective way. Rather than suppose only one person is look after all these issues, what happens? It takes a lot of time, and even it is not efficient. Okay, so in order to increase the computation speed up, instead of executing it by a single process, if we make it into subparts, and those subparts will be executed simultaneously, so that the computation speed will be increased. The modularity in the sense dividing the whole task into modules. Especially, you may be familiar with the client server environment. Okay, so there some part of this event will be executed in your server itself. Right? So like that, there are variety of reasons where we need to affect the execution of the others. At the same time, somebody may interrupt ourselves either for getting any one of this information. Okay, so this is multi-processor architecture. I'll show you. Okay, we'll discuss these things in the remaining class once again in detail, because some other things are also be discussed for the inter-process communication. Right? So up to now, what we understood is how do we create the process, how do we terminate the process, what is the need for inter-process communication. So these things we have discussed so far. So the remaining things which we can discuss in the next class, right? So you can ask if you have any queries. If you have any query, you can ask. You can unmute yourself, or you can drop a message in the chat box.